Welcome to Mo's Market Pulse. I'm your host, Sara Mokaram, founder of Mo Digital Solutions, where we help businesses hit their revenue goals and thrive. On this podcast, we talk with industry leaders about their business, market trends, growth strategies, and what's ahead. On today's episode, we are joined by Grace Schroeder, founder and CEO of Slingr. Thank you so much for joining me today, Grace.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
So you've carved out a unique niche in a space that's evolving rapidly with AI and automation. And I'm really just looking forward to unpacking your story, the business, and where you're heading next. So let's start with some context for our listeners who may not be familiar with Slingr or your background. So I noticed that you have a fascinating career journey from financial services to media and now enterprise tech. Can you walk us through the pivotal moment when you realized you wanted to start Slingr?
So I historically have been attracted to technology wherever I happen to land from a career perspective. So I was in financial services, moving from a wholesaler position at John Naveen and Company through to a retail brokerage position, later to a day trading firm. And day trading is really where I got fascinated by technology. It was the beginning of sort of SDN training, trading, which preceded internet, but we were able to sort of stand up a wide area network. It was local area networking coming online, and really got interested because the technology side of it changed enough where the financial services side was sort of like always just trying to make points on other people's money. So I would find my way to the technical parts of any organization. And the last corporate job I had, one of my responsibilities was managing a group of people, professionals who use spreadsheets to calculate $1.5 billion revenue quotas every month. And every territory did it differently. None of the reps felt like they were consistently treated. It was a screaming for a custom application, but there was nothing out there to make that less than a $70 million, IT boondoggle. So we wound up with a spreadsheet department of 30 to 40 people, and that was their life. And that's where I started getting possessed with the idea that there must be a way to create custom applications, custom automation more quickly. And that was the origin of the Slingr low code platform, which when we started, there was not even a term for low code platform. We were like, it's got to be easy to abstract all of the pieces of an application. You need a database, you need a UI, you need data orchestration, you need a way to integrate everything, you need fine-grained permissions for compliance purposes. And that's where we started down the road.
And how has that vision evolved over the years now that you're serving these enterprise clients with highly regulated needs?
Well, you have to, when we came up, there really weren't a lot of low code platforms. And there's a continuum, there's the beautiful bubbles of the world where a citizen developer can go create applications. And we toyed with the idea of trying to be that, for citizen developers who, like myself, were in a group that needed some automation that was not off the shelf. But we quickly discovered with our first meaningful clients that they all needed more sophistication than a citizen developer could bring to the table. So we pivoted away from trying to aim at citizen developers, and we just decided we were aiming at professional developers. And so we tended to handle the more sophisticated, complicated types of application versus sort of departmental mini function types of applications.
And how would you describe Slinger's core value proposition today to someone who's completely outside the tech industry?
So we are a solutions company. When you have a vexing business problem that maybe you have tried to solve with off the shelf, you never tried to solve because you never found the right technical tools and partners, we come in and listen to your objectives and create the custom automation without taking you through $1 million consulting engagement. We start by getting something working and into people's hands so they can start to imagine the benefits that they can get. In 100% of our clients, they know more after 30 to 60 days of us developing than they did when they started. And so the most important thing that we try to convey to people is you have to pick somebody to trust. It's really tough to do. We've all had bad experiences and horror stories about custom software development. But the cool thing about a low code application platform is it lets us get things in your hands quickly different than the old days where, a large consulting firm would come in and get a bunch of requirements, put a third of them in a parking lot, go away for 6 months and flash bang, a new app, which by the time it came out was outdated. We're putting things in people's hands to start using and working with within 2 to 3 weeks so that they can actually use it in their day job and tell us, you know what, this would make it easier for me. This would make it easier for me. And that's where everybody gets their own roadmap. You're not sitting behind 6,000 other clients who are all, hey, I need this feature, I need this. And the highest number of requests are the ones that get developed for the highest paying clients. And so there's a huge swath of business that's just like, okay, it's 80% of the way there, but that 20% is costing me, my profitability.
That's amazing that you guys can do it in such a fast time frame like that. So let's zoom out a bit and look at the broader market dynamics that you're playing in. What are the market shifts that you're most paying attention to, and how do you see them impacting your customers?
So I'm looking at the massive adoption of AI, and I'll call it at the retail level. And by that, I mean, most people are using some free version of several different LLMs, whether that's the Perplexities, ChatGPTs, the Geminis, the Claudes. They each have their own strengths. And I wonder, and I see them start to do a better job of writing custom code. And they're not there yet. You can't prompt your way to a low code application platform using AI and it's going to come out of the gate working. Now, I think this is going to represent a huge shift in software as a service and products because there's sort of not a need to create a big product fits every customer need in a huge addressable market because it's so much easier now to really assemble the piece parts of automation that you need. And in the near future, using AI to stitch together workflows is I think the way it's going to be. And I think that gives us an opportunity to work with clients that are like, you know what? I'm paying 100% for these massive platforms. I'm using 5% of the functionality. And now they want to charge me a lot more to even get into the agentic space. And now maybe it's time to re-platform. Like what we can start from scratch now. And it's not the same as starting from scratch, even 3 years ago. So it's super exciting. I love the custom nature of it. I think it gives businesses of all sizes the ability to compete. And they're only limited by their creativity and their understanding of their clients and how their clients like to be treated and what they want to buy from them. And it's so that's where I'm sort of anti huge business, if you can't tell, but I'm super excited to see how this fragments, these massive software markets. I think the closer the solution gets to the clients, you're not going to buy a product and have your software team go away. Your software team has to stay with you now because most of these products are leveraging LLMs that are changing every 3 or 4 months. And that may or may not require a change in what you do, but in the foreseeable future, it's going to. So the whole thing, like I'm going to buy an off-the-shelf product, I'm going to configure it once, set and forget, and I believe that model is dead.
Definitely. And so when you look at other competitors for Slingr, where do you see kind of that white space or unmet need that Slingr is uniquely solving?
So people ask about our competitors a lot. And it's interesting because we sort of compete mostly against custom code, spreadsheets, some packaged products, but not a ton. Most of the people that come to us recognize that they can't get what they want out of a packaged product because they have tried it or tried it several times. So what we do is because we have our own platform, our own people, we can adjust the platform roadmap to work with our clients and what our clients need. So it's just a faster feedback loop between the developers that work on your application and the people that are actually writing the platform internally. And that juxtaposition has helped us a lot because we serve a lot of clients. They're like, yeah, my guys, my other vendor said they were going to give this to us in 6 months, and that was 3.5 years ago, and I just can't go on. Especially when they're growing, they're like, they're perfectly nice people, but they can't. And that's usually a physics issue of software development. As companies and platforms and software as a service gets more mature, they have large bodies of customers on them. It's really tough to sort of modify them, especially when radical things happen like AI. You can't sort of re-engineer something like Salesforce or NetSuite, or it's just too big. Um, and the change is too radical.
So, with regulated industries, there can be lag in adopting emerging tech. So, what are some of the adoption barriers that you've seen, and how does Slinger overcome kind of that trust gap there?
Yeah. And it really does highly depend on the industry you're in. So we stay away from, we are in healthcare, but we stay away from using AI to diagnose. We stay away from patient impacting um, AI solutions. So what we focus on are, what do we know it can do well today? Well, we know it can be trained to extract data from documents. We know it can be trained to summarize and generate consistent reports if you need to supply expert witness testimony to a court. So we focus on the things we know it does well, and the pieces of the engagement include a human in the loop interface, so that gradually the humans start to understand how to coexist with agents, how to help refine them, define them. And that human in the loop then learns, hey, you know what? This data needs to be fixed. They're sort of staring and comparing. This data should be added for training. This data should be added for evaluation. And that way they can make sure that the work they're doing is creating a continuous improvement loop, and they're not just sort of, futzing around with AI. So, I mean, it's a company-wide effort, I think, for people to get familiar with and comfortable and embrace, this new worker class, if you will. I think it opens up a whole range of questions about employment. Like we simply don't need to work as hard to stay alive as we did, when we were digging snow caves to survive. So where do we become as a society? All that kind of stuff is still opening up. But I mean, history tells us that every new technology has beget new careers and new services. And I think people are nervous, but I believe that's going to happen here too.
So, I guess just to clarify, it's really you're offering a human face as well, right? In partnership. And then you're also looking at what aspects in the business would be appropriate to use this, where it's not like you gave an example, diagnosis. That's out of the realm. So
Yeah.
it's more of what are processes where this would make sense and be able for you to trust this
Yeah.
process. Okay.
And that human in the loop piece of it is very important because it's gotten so much better. Like 5, 6 months ago, we were having problems extracting data from PDF, and then almost overnight, everything magically worked better. And so this is what you see in terms of advancements. It's not like it's just exponential improvements our challenge is getting people to start somewhere, because we build solutions in a way that we can just choose the next version as it comes out, and it won't destroy the entire application. And that's because we're not doing all this with custom code. We have a consistent way that we treat integrations, a consistent way we break down workflows for agentics, and so as things improve, it's going to get easier and faster, but you're at least starting to get your people familiar with what it means to agentify a workforce and put yourself in a great position for new careers, because a lot of people won't embrace it, but those that do, will have work until they don't want it anymore.
All right. So I want to kind of shift gears here and talk about growth and just acquiring customers and building the business. So I know that you've mentioned working with healthcare. What other industries have you guys found are approachable with your product and, different customer segmentations that you really go after?
So we landed in healthcare in the lab space, laboratory information management systems. Those were sort of exposed during COVID because they didn't have APIs. And all of a sudden, you have these labs trying to go from 700 tests to 20,000 tests a day, and they can't take orders from multiple locations. They're asking people to log into some portal 20,000 times. That nobody's going to do that. And that's where we discovered a nice sort of niche for us and strong there. We've also worked in healthcare with natural language processing, agentics, voice agents 5 years ago to book orthopedic appointments. And now, we're migrating that tech, which was used to be all sort of Amazon centric, to probably some other platforms that just make it all easier. And so that I like healthcare a lot because we've invested heavily in security, SOC 2, HIPAA compliance, and a lot of the low code platforms really can't say they're HIPAA. They support HIPAA compliance. The glide path, I think, for the future is working with companies that want to infuse AI. I believe that the IP of the future is domain expertise. And we've recently seen a lot of success in professional services companies, law firms, medical practices coming to us directly saying, hey, this is what I want to do. I don't want to buy something off the shelf and expose every single piece of data I have, but I have this idea that can take this thing from 7 hours a month to 30 minutes a month, and I make a lot of money on this thing. So we come in and automate that. And same for a law firm. Like, we do this process and it takes 4 months, and we know it could take 20 minutes. And they're jumping on it. And that's the fun, actually the most fun part of the business to me, is where you have successful business leaders going, you know what, I need to cannibalize my own business here because I can lead, or I can just sit here and worry why, my billings are cut in half because everybody's using some form of AI to make themselves more efficient.
It's probably fun also to see your solution come to a business or start engaging with a customer who, like you said, might be taking 4 months to complete tasks. And then your solution can come in and actually make a real difference in that time and effort that's going into it. And I'm sure the employees love it as well, to be able to see a solution take.
If you're you're a brain surgeon and you're creating expert witness testimony on your weekends when you'd rather be hanging out with your kids, and you have to do this, but a lot of the parts you just need to review it, right? It just needs to be intelligently assembled, and that's what we can bring to the table to take that manual review process down from 6 hours to 30 minutes. And it's a life changer. There's 20 of these a month in various physicians, and they all hate it. So it's just like automate the tedium and the grind.
And what channels or strategies have been most effective in helping you grow or acquire customers in these different segments?
Well, it's a really good question, and it's been the bane of my existence because we we are a horizontal platform, so technically we can handle anything in any industry. Our ICP tends to be more art than science. So when you think about it, you're somebody that's going to bring in a solution to fix a problem, and your company has historically just bought off the shelf products. It's a little bit of an uphill climb to say, you know what, those up off the shelves, they haven't worked the last 5 times we tried them. Let's try this Slingr approach and have them build it for us. That's a tough sell. It's getting a lot easier as people have now experienced, PTSD from failed software implementations, expensive failed software implementations. But we find that once we can get them like 30 days in and they can see the cadence and the speed with which we can adapt what they're telling us to a piece of software, then everything's great.
Yep. And in terms of scale, how do you think about balancing your growth with customization and service, especially with really specialized use cases?
That's also been a struggle. I mean, part of us, we didn't raise like $10 million in VC funding, so we've always had to be somewhat opportunistic on taking clients and making money versus sticking to something strictly repeatable and high scale. Ultimately, I think our scale comes from the platform itself and growing utilization of the platform itself. And to entice developers to do that, we are heads down working on an open source version so that within probably Q1 2025, we'll be able to extend the platform to third-party developer communities and have an open source, license model.
Okay, that's great. And that could be a great acquisition channel as well.
Yeah, and look, we've always wanted to do that, and it's just been a case of, um, when's the right time? Because the way we make money is building solutions. Like, we don't need to focus on that now, but now we believe that the domain expertise is not the IP is in domain expertise, not in the code. And so we want to make the code smaller and tidier. We're going to offload some of the features to more common developer tools that didn't exist when we started, and that way kind of just become a more of a fabric in the growing, changing ecosystems that I think we can play an important role there. And the reason is that our platform is somewhat mature. But we're shrinking it, but it works. It works well at scale. It's secret of low code applications. They're very hard to build. You wouldn't just go, hey, I'm going to raise $2 million and build a low code platform. It's really more complicated because you don't really know how it scales until you have customers with lots of apps on it and you see which pieces are starting to, mutate improperly. But that's our long-term view. Like it's going to be software with a service for the foreseeable future, I believe.
So, of course, building any platform or business isn't always easy. So, I want to dive into some challenges or friction points that have really tested you and the team. What's been one of the most emotionally difficult moments building Slingr where you maybe thought this might break us or this might be the end?
Well, that was in the beginning. The first team I partnered with to try to build this was just not an enterprise software team. So we got something in market within 8 months or so, but then the first clients really destroyed it, meaning that it didn't function for them. So then changed out teams, moved the technology a little bit, but still not sort of an enterprise team. So and both times I had to go back to investors and say, you know what, got closer, but that one didn't work either. That's pretty painful before you're really in market. Then I met Diego Gaviola, our CTO, and he's the human that really brought this to life. Having not met him, we wouldn't be a company today. And so that's where, I just sort of stumbled out going, I know this is a good idea. I tried some things. I tend to have a bias for action because I can learn faster that way, even if it's a correct, I need to make a correction. But that really made the difference. It was that. Then, we had the usual scale problems where you get a client that's going to import 3 million records a night and it has to be ready by 8 in the morning and it's got a bunch of transformations. And then sometimes they just throw a new field in there and the whole import breaks, but you have to know it happens right away because you have to fix it right away. Then you have to create jobs management after the fact, so like that whole like scaling and then adding the features to scale at the same time, also challenging. But burn through all of that and like I think our plan for creating an open source version, community version, having more integration with GitHub and all of the common Visual Studio, all the common developer IDs is the scale path for us.
And are there any recurring customer needs or even internal challenges that keep showing up kind of again and again, ones that just aren't easy to solve?
There are a lot of things that aren't easy to solve, but we haven't found anything that isn't solvable. And it's, because this is the other question you always get, like, who owns the IP? Like, nothing you're doing most people aren't doing anything really proprietary. Okay, you're extracting information from data. That's not like that. It's not IP. I want recurring customer needs. We dream about them.
Right.
But this is the dirty secret is every company is unique. They are. You have a product that says, oh, I'm picking up a sample. I have to put all this information in, or I can't record the sample on this location. And so because it requires me to do that, I just put a bunch of dummy data in there and then I got to go fix it. Like just stupid workflows like that would be, all I want to do is type in number 45 and then go fill it all back in when I get, so being able to make those adjustments, align the technology with the humans is the future. And that's where, it's super exciting because repeatable problems can be things like extracting data from PDFs, CSVs, images, audio, video. That can be a repeatable problem. We can get very good at that. Subsections of that might include invoices or time cards or pay stubs or whatever the case. But now the repeatability, we're starting to brand IntelliParse as our data ingestion and orchestration. Like we get all the data out, you approve, yep, that the data's right. Where do you want it to go? Just those little piece parts of congestion in the data flow are starting to be the repeatable things that we're addressing. And while it's not really a product, it's a similar approach every single time we do it. And we do have assets that we can start with that make it like it's not all straight scratch every new project.
Right. That makes sense. And if you could say, have a magic wand and wave it and fix one internal constraint, what would it be and why?
Fix one internal constraint. I would say this would take a real magic wand. It's context switching. So when we have clients, typically we'll have a team unit working with a client. And some people take half team units, some people take team units and a half. And so we have some flexibility in moving people from work on one project, maybe two projects, maybe three projects. But context switching for developers historically has been very difficult. They usually get, there's a work epics, there's a work breakdown, they get their tasks, they get their tickets, they do it. Now you have to have developers who are engaged with the client. They need to be able to pull out of the client not just what they're saying, but what's that next step, and then what do you do after that? And that's changing of the developer from the sitting in a cave coding to more of a sort of business analyst, developer, integrator, architect is challenging. I mean, that's the magic transition, and we have to do it because those sitting in a cave coding jobs are going away. They're going to be replaced by automation. So you're taking this whole universe of very talented, very smart people, and you're a lot of them hate it talking to clients, and now they're good at it. But it's something. It's something that we work on every day.
Makes sense. And so now I want to close and kind of shift gears to the future with Slingr. What are the top one or two business metrics that you're most focused on improving over the next 12 months?
So the number one is cost per meeting. Nothing, we are a solutions company that typically has to have a call in order to formulate some sort of a proposal or something like that. So that's the metric that we're trying to improve upon. That's the number one. And the second one would be to further diversify. We have a few larger clients that take up, we have concentration risk. So that's the other metric I steadily drive away from.
What does a big win look like by this time next year? And what will it take from your team, your product, or your market to get there?
For us, a big win is a client of any size that has specific roadmap of items they want to automate. And those for us are perfect partners. We have multi-year engagements. We are clipping off, delivering automation on time, on budget, and to have a nice, healthy new patch of 2 or 3 larger customers would be a huge win for us next year. Work drives process, and then keeping close to how the decisions are happening in companies, especially with respect to AI. Like, how are you even deciding what to do? Like, how many people are holding their hand up going to pick my department to automate? Not many. So that would be the most meaningful thing to us. And I think we're on track to get there.
Great. And for those who want to learn more about Slingr or connect with you, where's the best place?
So my email address, grace@slingr, SLINGR.io. Slingr.io is our website. And then I'm available on LinkedIn and generally hyper available on the World Wide Web.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to Mo's Market Pulse. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, and join us again to hear more insights from leaders coming up on future episodes. And thank you again, Grace, for joining us today.
My pleasure, Sarah. Thanks for having me.